Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mark from Solar Games, and yes, today we're going to talk about a maybe potentially controversial subject. People might get really mad at me for even talking about this or whatever, but um, I think my personal thoughts and ideas about these kind of things is always just speak my mind, say what I want to say, and I think there are quite a bit of my viewers who do want to hear my opinion on this whole subject. So, as you can see, I'm wearing the Alpha Investment shirt. I did not purchase this shirt from Rudy directly, but I got it as a gift from one of my friends and somebody I really appreciate and really respect. So that's why I have the shirt. That's why I wear it sometimes, right? Um, but the point of this video is really about like what's happened recently on Rudy's channel and all this stuff. And as some of the viewers know, the whole backstory about what's happened is that apparently Rudy made some comments about games, trading card games towards the end of the year, and the whole idea is like he's doing a summary of like what's happening with all the different games, and he made a couple comments on like LSS, the creators of Flesh and Blood, right? And the comments, I guess, were a little bit negative or not what LSS wanted to hear, especially from somebody that's kind of like in a way like a frontline representative, ambassador, if you will, for the game. So they felt like they felt really, I guess, maybe hurt by his comments, and I think there was some exchange of emails and back and forth, which to the point where Rudy felt it was appropriate for him to take down that video. Of course, given the way that Rudy's been doing his channel, the way that he's kind of promoting himself, this whole idea of like, hey, I am a, speaker of truth and all this stuff, and I'm not sponsored. Sorry, Rudy, right? Not me. I'm fully sponsored by myself, of course. But like Rudy's saying, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm, all for myself. I'm all for the viewers. For him to take a video down, it does feel really like weird. Um, and maybe it is kind of potentially an issue for Rudy to be doing things like, on one hand, saying things like always going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you you know, what he can tell you, what's on his mind, but then flip around and kind of like do things that you feel like are betraying that kind of trust that you have with Rudy. I think the first thing we want to talk about is just this whole LSS issue, right? So why did Rudy take down the video? Obviously, he felt like there was more damages to maybe his brand, his image, and potentially for him to have any future collaboration with LSS, right? So if you think about it, right, this is how business works. Rudy is getting preferential treatment from LSS, of course. He's probably getting the best prices or pricing similar to distribution. So normally for his magic stuff, that he has to go through distribution. Wizard of the Coast is not on a friendly basis with Rudy, so they're never going to sell the products directly to him. But of course, distributions will sell it to Rudy because everyone's just trying to make money. There's no and Wizard of the Coast has not like blacklisted Rudy or anything like that to the point where he can't buy from distribution. It's not a thing. So and Rudy has a store, so he can of course order products. He just can't be part of the like pre-release wave. So usually he gets pre-release kits, etc. After everybody kind of like he can't get it on the pre-release weekend, but he can usually get it afterwards. And nowadays with Magic overprinting and there's a lot of product all the time, distribution is probably more willing to kind of cut him a deal, especially because he's a big customer of theirs, right? So that's basically. But with LSS, the relationship is totally different because Rudy basically gets preferential treatment, he gets better pricing, he gets promo cards, etc. And this point, I feel like Rudy is being dishonest. He would say things like, "Oh, I'm paying for the promo cards, for example, the Gem Keeper cards or the other equipment cards now that he's kind of making to go along with the Gem Keeper card." He would say things like, "Hey, I'm paying for these cards, etc., etc." But what he's not telling you is how much he's paying for the cards. Yes, he could be paying for the cards, he could be paying the print costs, etc., for the cards, but those costs far it's way less than what he's charging for the cards themselves, right? So he's essentially printing rarity. Like imagine if I were to say something like, I'm selling you money, US currency, right? Fiat currency. I'm paying for the printing of these $100 bills, but I'm selling to you for $100. There's a problem with that because it doesn't cost $100 to print a $100 bill. It costs way less. Now it doesn't cost zero, but it's a lot less than $100. So to be able to go and say, oh, I can just print them and I'm paying for them, I'm selling to you for 100, I'm not really making any money. That's not true at all. So this part, I think, again, he's not being fully honest. Maybe he's not being dishonest, but what he's like omitting in his statement is making, I think, could cause some viewers or some people who are more gullible or don't understand how this works to think like, oh yeah, Rudy's really for the community. Look, Rudy is for himself and his family, number one. And honestly, I would not expect him to be anything else, right? He is a business person. He has to make money. Obviously, that's why he does the things he does. He's on YouTube because he makes money. He sells you cards. He has a Patreon because it makes money. So there's that. So on to the topic of Patreon, right? So obviously with Rudy and the LSS thing, losing a bunch of patrons. I guess recently he's been selling some cards, maybe not for great pricing. And so a lot of the patrons are getting a little bit mad, thinking that the Rudy deal is not there anymore, right? So full disclosure, back in 2020, I believe it was January, I was actually a Rudy patron for about 4 or 5 months, right? And basically, I was just doing the monthly orders from Rudy. I felt like he was somebody I can learn a lot from, and I did learn a lot from him for about 2 years. So this is my like research into Magic and really understanding things like authenticity, reserve lists, old Magic, new Magic, how to invest. What kind of boxes are good? Like all the knowledge things I've gained from Rudy. So definitely, I felt like being his patron is valuable because I should pay somebody for this type of like, I found the knowledge valuable. So I felt like it was okay to pay him for it, right? And so I was his patron for a while. I would order some products from him, different boxes. I think I bought some like back then must have been Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance boxes, with Shock Clans. Felt pretty good. Of course, reprinting more Shock Clans now, I feel pretty bad now. So I don't know, but it doesn't matter, right? It's not That's not the point. The point is like, of course, I was his patron, full disclosure. And I can tell you this, right? Even back then, the pricing for the booster boxes was really good. It was at the point where I realized, like, and this is before like a lot of stores locally to me would start like maybe giving like super preferential pricing. So, like for example, there's a store in San Francisco, right, that has like membership, and I'm not going to name the store, but everybody who's watching knows what I'm talking about. They have membership, and so for the membership, they would used to have like really crazy membership pricing, and if you ever did the math in your head, you would realize that the store basically was earning a membership fee and they were passing to you the same price they were being charged at distribution, right? And so there's quite a bit of risk from the store's perspective to do this because, if products are late, etc., they could lose a lot of players and get a lot of like bad rep. If any sort of like price fluctuation happens, and of course whatever they were charging you, and they have to take these orders way ahead of time, would be like would have a problem, right? Because their margins are so paper thin on what they're actually selling you. Now, I realized that until that store really offered their I guess membership model, Rudy's model was the best. I mean, it was the best simply because it was the best price and it didn't have tax. And I live in California, so I'm paying like 10% taxes. Pretty insane. Um, it also had included shipping, right? So the shipping is kind of just extra. Like with the store in San Francisco, I used to have to drive there and pay like bridge toll, all that stuff. And the only reason basically I stopped the Rudy membership to then go to to buy directly from the store was because I needed cards quicker for like pre-sale things like that. Things I'm not really going to get into, of course, for this video, but I'll just tell you this, right? A lot of people kind of think Rudy's scamming people on Patreon, whatever. And yes, I would admit that his pricing today, nowadays, um, is not like what they were like 3 4 years ago, right? I think 3 4 years ago he was very close to what the store in San Francisco would do, which is distribution pricing plus maybe like 1 to 5%. Like for example, if he had a draft booster for 76, he'll sell it to you for 80, right? That's a very preferential pricing from Rudy. That's really really good, right? But nowadays, like what he'll do instead is more like if let's say draft boosters now are like what 95, 100. Um, 95 from distribution, maybe he gets a better deal because he's buying a lot of them, but he's going to sell it to you for like 105, 105, 110, that kind of stuff. So again, it's variable. I think his draft boosters are actually 90, but he's also getting like specific sets of draft boosters and whatnot. So anyway, so again, variable type of pricing, all up and down the stream. Just saying, like they're really good Rudy deals. Where I think he sold like Ikoria collector boosters for I think 200 or something, or 195 if you bought like a lot of them. And then there are other times when he sold things for way too expensive and then they came crashing down. Like I think it was like yeah. Anyway, it's like a lot of other products. You guys know what I'm talking about here. What I'll tell you about the Patreon thing, right, is that as a so by the way, Solar Games, me, I have a Patreon as well. I have way less members than Rudy, but I think my pricing actually model can match Rudy basically, but about the same, right? Like we're obviously I'm a little bit more, maybe a little more expensive than Rudy's Patreon, but part of that is just because I can't move the kind of volume that he does, right? Obviously, so it is what it is. I do again appreciate all the members who are supporting me. So thank you guys so much for being patrons. I don't always say that, but I do appreciate it. I'll tell you this from a person who's running a Patreon, and the whole perspective there is that the $15 a month I charge for the patrons that are ordering products for me, honestly, that just covers shipping. Period. For example, if I'm shipping like I'm sending out a bunch of like Dominator remastered cases today, but a case of 6 draft boosters of Dominator Remastered, not even in a double like box or anything like that, cost me 14.17 to ship, and this is the discounted shipping price from USPS rather than what you're paying retail. If you go to the store, I think it's going to be about $20 to ship that box or something. I don't really know the pricing because I don't really buy that pricing anymore, but with my discounted shipping, it's like this. So I'm charging 15, and if you buy product from me, I'm paying 14 of that into shipping, but and I make $1, but not really because I have to pay a fee. I think it's 8% now to Patreon. So your $15, there's about 10% of it. Let's just say like 8%, I'll round it up to 10, about $1.50. So let's say $1 is taken away already. So most of the time when patrons buy products from me, the $15 fee is already kind of like completely used up. And then I kind of have to pay a little bit more into it. Obviously, also for the draft boosters, I think I upcharge about like 5 to 10% from what I'm paying distribution. Um, so of course, that's how I kind of make my margins a little bit. But aside from that, like really, I'm not making any money. This is just kind of how it works. I'm mostly passing that to patrons. Yeah, and realistically, it's the same thing, right? Like Rudy, when he says things like, "Hey, I'm doing this to make money and put food on the table for my family," it's correct. Like, why would anyone just do this stuff like a sweat equity, pack all the stuff, whatever, for free? It doesn't make any sense. And the margins, honestly, is really, really bad. So for me personally, I do this mostly, honestly, just for the players because I know most players who want to play Magic or Grand Archive or whatever Pokemon, they don't have access to products at this kind of pricing because they don't have the relationships that I have with distribution. They may not have whatever special tax situations I have with like the state or whatever, right? So it's completely different. So in some ways, I'm just kind of providing the service to them because realistically, if I spend that time instead to go purchase reserve list cards, old school cards, and then flip them, I actually make much better margins. So that's just FYI on how that all works. Yeah. By the way, also really easier, much easier to ship and safer to ship reserve list cards than it is to ship like a case of Magic cards, draft booster sealed. So that's why, honestly, if people don't think it's a good value and they want to quit Rudy's Patreon, hey, look, power to you, man. Like I know how it is, but I will just say, if you are saying he's a scumbag, he's earning a ton of money from Patreon, you're wrong. He's actually not. And when he says he's not, he's actually true. He's actually being realistic about it. Yes, he's earning some money, and the amount of money that he earns, he really has to scale up. But the problem with him and scaling is, guess who's doing all the shipping? It's just literally him and his family. Like he doesn't have like a bunch of like a whole Rudy operation. It's not Santa's little elves type of thing. So there's that. Yeah. So I guess that's all I'll say on that. And then the last part about like Rudy going to hiding, that's just kind of bullshit, right? People get sick. I've gotten sick in the past. I would not upload videos for a week or whatever. I guess people kind of got used to Rudy's like upload cadence of like once or 2 videos a day. So of course, when he goes silent for a couple days, it does feel really awkward, and especially on the tail end of this whole like LSS drama, whatever, taking that whole video, um, it is a little bit like weird that it put him in this situation. But yeah, like it's just bullshit. Don't trust like whatever the internet tells you. Obviously, go find out for yourself. Give people a little bit of space. Like if content creators are tired, they'll take break for a while. Like that's completely normal. Don't expect people to just be like always on all the time. So that's I guess what I'll say about that part. Again, as I'm making this video, I'm feeling like maybe this is not the most popular opinion. Everyone wants me to come on the camera and be like, Rudy's total shield, Rudy's, scamming everyone, whatever. But like I said, from the way I am, I would just always tell you the truth. There's really no I gain nothing from this, right? I just want to tell you the truth because I think that's what, at least give you my perspective, what I think is happening. But I think a more interesting perspective, right? So part of this now is we're turning into this. So I want to answer a question here about whether I think Rudy is a show, right? And whether he's scamming people, whatever. Um, I'll just say this, right? There are a couple of things that I don't like about where Rudy's channel has gone in the recent year or so. I feel like in some ways, yes, he has betrayed like trust or what he's stood for a long time. Now he's kind of like not doing that. One good example of this would be like him, having this long term kind of like feeling that he doesn't care about grading and he thinks grading is a scam, right? So he oftentimes in older videos he would make videos that would say like he thinks grading is a scam, he thinks grading doesn't matter that much. People should know the raw card and you should look at the card yourself and say, hey, this card is really really good looking or etc. You shouldn't have some company tell you that, etc. Right? So I actually still even today fully agree with this. I think there are too many ways to manipulate grading, from both the perspective of how to get better grades to the perspective, like, honestly, like, if you know what you need to do, there are ways to use and abuse the grading system to your ends and to basically trick newer players into thinking cards that are not very valuable are actually very valuable. I won't get into the details, but people who are doing this know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So that's how he felt for a long time, and I agree with that. But recently, or not recently, but I guess almost a year now, he's purchased SCG, right, an actual grading company or a controlling share of it. And now he's all into grading. Grading is great, and he's like sending out graded cards, etc. Obviously, with his bundles, etc., and charging for that. So yes, has he changed his perspective? Has he flipped off? Absolutely. But in some ways too, like I can understand why he did it, though I still don't agree with it. And I think this part is something that, people, if you want to criticize him for anything, criticize him for this. Why did you flip? Did you literally flip your opinion on grading because of the money? Because you just realize there's a lot of a market for grading. So now grading is all great, and he's going to own a controlling share of a third tier grading company, right? So there's number one. Number two is I think the whole preferential pricing thing, right? So for a long time on his Patreon, he would give you very very preferential pricing. I'm telling you, like when he sold draft boosters at 80, he was either selling at basically slightly of a loss or basically cutting even. Maybe he would gain like $1 or $2 per draft boosters. Again, it kind of varies because his pricing probably varies a little bit too. Um, but nowadays, like his prices are not that great. There's a lot of times when I see him do deals for like collector boosters, etc., and I would go to my distribution or go to other honestly stores, and they would sell for less than what he's selling. And to me, right away, I'm like, wait, there's a problem here. Why is that Rudy is charging this much when everyone else can go to this number, right? And that's where that greed is coming in, because he's probably thinking like, oh, I should capture the market. If TCG player says, hey, this booster box should be this price, I I just go a little bit underneath. What he's not doing instead is kind of offering his deal to all the patrons like he did before. So instead, what he's doing is just saying, "Hey, market minus 10% is my price," kind of thing. So I don't like that part about what's happening with Rudy, and of course, like things like Monarch. I guess the Monarch situation no one could have predicted because it was everyone got scammed, right, including Rudy. So there's that. Yeah, we talked about the LSS Fab promos, etc. But also, MetaZoo, same thing, right? A lot of the promo cards that he gave, the Rudy 6.9 kits, right? So the Rudy 6.9 kits were, I think, in a lot of ways, kind of scummy, in the sense that he knows the value that he's putting into the kits, and he knows like there's a lot of people who are subscribed to his channel or his patrons are not like into MetaZoo. They are could be very into Flesh and Blood or like Pokemon or um, Magic. But so much of his focus for his kits and for his prizes and bonuses were for MetaZoo. And honestly, now we know the reason is because he, number one, got a bunch of promo stuff from MetaZoo for for all the stuff. So a lot of his promo stuff were from MetaZoo and they were free. So he could put them in the kit and basically it doesn't cost him that much, right? Whereas having like more Sue Allen Brown like hand drawn like cards or whatever costs a lot more money because he has to get somebody to go artist to go do this. It's a commission thing. So that's number one. Number two is like I felt like it was just him dumping products onto people. Like there were loose packs and things like that. Probably things that he could never sell, or at least not sell for like really easily or for a profit, because shipping booster packs is really awkward actually. Um, but instead he puts it in the kit, and it's like, here you have it. It's that felt a little bit weird to me, right? So that's number two, I guess. Yeah, and lastly, let's talk about just MetaZoo altogether. I know there are a lot of people out there who are still like, "Oh, MetaZoo's great, whatever, all that stuff." Let me just put it this way, right? I think MetaZoo is a scam. I think MetaZoo was kind of like a joke of a card game that maybe got too big, and then because of Rudy, because of people like Rudy who are pumping this whole thing up, it got a lot bigger than what the creators probably could have foreseen that they could design for. Now, I'm going to anger a lot of people when I say this, is that I still think MetaZoo does not have a very bright future. I think MetaZoo is one of those card games or whatever, a collectible from this era that's going to basically spark out very soon, because there's not a lot of there's not a lot of drive behind it. They're continuously having issues where they would, for example, that whole TCG player thing, right? I commented on this because as another person, I'm going on TCG player and I see them discounting this thing 50% on release. So do you have a lot of product? Do you have none? Like, what's happening? And I know MetaZoo is always overprinting. They have this, and honestly, like the player base, like who's actually playing this game, the way that it's like designed. It's basically Pokemon for adults who think like fart jokes are funny, is MetaZoo, right? And so I don't know. For me personally, just not my game. I think the art's also like pretty stupid, and the box, the frames just doesn't look very good. The card quality, like let's be honest, like honestly, after playing Grand Archive and holding Grand Archive cards, no card, no trading card game can impress me with their card quality anymore at all. I don't know how I don't know how you guys feel, and if you never held a Grand Archive card, go buy something. There's a lot of bulk that you can buy. Buy a card, touch it, you'll see what I mean right away. Especially, go buy one of the foils, right? From Fracture Crown, the second set of Grand Archive. Just buy one of the foils, touch it. You'll know right away what I mean. Yeah. So there's that. So in conclusion, is Rudy a shill? Yes, but I think that's also by design because he's trying to make money. So why would he not be shilling? I think if he wasn't shilling, that would be a problem, right? Now, there are ways to earn money, but also be like, I don't know, friendly to the community and to your community. And I don't mean like be nice to all Magic players. What I mean is be nice to the people who are supporting you, who are your patrons for a while, who've been there with you through thick and thin. Um, I think that part Rudy has failed. And he's walked back on some of his, previous very staunch stances about like grading, about speaking truth no matter what, that he's not influenced. But the reality is he is influenced now. So, you know, there are free promos that he's given by LSS, right? And so making a video that angers LSS means he doesn't get those promos. What do you think a person's going to do? And this is the thing, like LSS doesn't actually have to pay Rudy, but just because he loses access or has even the threat or potential of losing access is enough to kind of like have him toe the line. And this is where I think a lot of influencers, when they get to the point where they have a lot of sponsors, they start seeing the problem. And this is one of the reasons why I wish, I really want to, and this is, sorry, a little personal plug here for myself, but I really want to continue making videos without, sponsors. Just look, my channels may be small, but I know I'm touching a very specific topic and um, area and player of interest that I've actually gotten a lot of sponsorship like offers, but I've basically taken none of them. And even the ones I have like taken or whatever is basically something like this, right? They want me to make a certain type of video, right? And I say, no, here's what's going to happen. If you want to send me products so I can like review it, I will review it, but you have no control over what I say. And if your product sucks, I will tell the world your product sucks. So that's it. Um, yeah. Or honestly, if the product really sucks, I don't really even want to tell the world because it's just wasting my time, right? So, or sorry, if the product really sucks, I will definitely make a video to warn you guys not to buy it. If the product's just mediocre, it probably won't even get a video because it's not worth my time to tell people, hey, this product's kind of like okay. But if the product is really great and it's like something that surprised me, then I'll of course tell you about it too, so you can go and buy the product because I think it's actually really great. And I'm not saying that because, of course, like they're giving me money or free products or whatever. I'm just telling you that because I think it's a good product, right? This is what I believe in, and I don't want to change that perspective of myself at all. So yeah, I think lastly, just even with me or with any other influencers, my recommendation is like you guys gotta like make your own decisions, right? Think about situations yourself. Think about what people are saying. Make your own decisions. Do not trust somebody 100%. Don't trust me 100%. I in this video made a lot of comments about Rudy and Alpha Investments. Am I right? Am I wrong? Who knows, right? I may be right on some things. I may be wrong on some things. Don't trust me 100%. Go do your own research or make up your own mind, right? Study the evidence and make up your own mind. That's what I can say. And that's what I think everyone should learn how to do because that's one of the most valuable skill you'll have in life. That's going to do for me for today. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. This is Mark from Solar Games. I'm signing out. Stay classy.